What's up, everybody? Pep Man Matt Morrow, Charlotte Football Insiders, CFI. Welcome to Between the Lines live edition. Just kind of happened. I didn't announce it. I didn't plan it this way. Typically, Between the Lines is pre-recorded, but figured we go live, just for the heck of it tonight. See what happens. All right. So I liked the format last week. Got some good feedback on the analytics that threw out there. So we're gonna stick with the the analytic format for Max Preps this week. We're gonna get to our list of games. First game we're gonna look at is a big game here. We got Myers Park at 4-2, going on the road to take on Ardrey Kell at 3-1. Big game here in the Meck Conference. These teams have been really strong in the non-conference so far. Myers Park's two losses are to nationally ranked Buford and Hough, probably the best team in the state now after their win over Chambers. And Ardrey Kell's only loss is to Porter Ridge, who is undefeated in Union County. So, rightfully so, Max Preps has Myers Park number 4 in their class, has Ardrey Kell number 8 in their class. Very, very strong teams we're looking at here. The analytics say we're going to have a great football game. We're going to have an Ardrey Kell victory of 30-29. Wow. So Max Preps is saying this is a game that everyone needs to see. You're going to have a little bit of everything, good offense, some defensive stops, all that good stuff. When you start looking at this game, the thing that you're going to have to start kind of questioning is Ardrey Kell, has been off since their loss to Porter Ridge. Myers Park, is coming off a overtime victory at home against Cardinal Gibbons. So does Myers Park get off to the quicker start because they have played more recently? Or does Ardrey Kell come off, really fast because they're fresher, chomping at the bit after, some time off? But anyway, I really think this game is going to be one of big plays. You got both sides that have some really strong offensive ability. We've seen that, all in the pre-conference so far. Two very good quarterbacks, two of the best in Charlotte, with Lucas Linhoff and Jack Curtis going head-to-head. It's going to be fun if you like offensive football. The key, I think, is going to be which defense shows up to get the job done. I think both of these defenses are a little bit overlooked, maybe Myers Park more so than Ardrey Kell. But that's going to be, the key when you got two really good, offensive potential teams that you have right here. The one factor that, we get to talk about that we don't talk about much is a home field advantage. Ardrey Kell is one of the better home fields with the students that, attend the games. It seems like in that southern Charlotte area, you always have some good support, from the home team and the home fans. I remember coaching in this game when I was at Myers Park, and we went to Ardrey Kell, and it was, a big game because we were pretty good. It was a really good atmosphere. I expect the same on Friday night. I see Damian Jackson's commenting saying he likes Myers Park in this one. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a close game. This is a big game to try to get an advantage and an edge toward the Meck Conference Championship. We've got 3 really strong teams, and then Olympic, still will have something to say about a conference title possibly coming down the stretch. So, these kind of games are going to be really, really strong and really, really fun to watch. So if you don't have a game to check out Friday night, I think this is your game for sure, in my opinion. Anyway, all right. Let's go to the next game here. We're going to take a look at North Meck at 2-2 going on the road to take on 3-1 Mallard Creek. Um, this is an interesting game. And we're really getting into conference play, which is the awesome thing here. This is when the money really counts. Um, North Meck, they had a tough one when they played Hough 2 weeks ago. And our, Kenneth McClamrock was there, and, it was, just a one-sided affair. Mallard Creek is starting to play well. They're starting to play well. They had a big win over Hopewell last week, and they've gotten conference victories over Hopewell and West Charlotte, and they're looking to keep that streak going and stay in a share of first place with the Hough Huskies. Let's see what Max Preps has to say here. So they've got North Meck ranked 38th in their class, and they've got Mallard Creek ranked 19th. Max Preps is predicting a Mallard Creek victory of 28-23. So relatively close game Max Preps is predicting here. I think it could go that way. I think North Meck has, some ability. They've got some guys that can make some plays on both sides of the ball. I watched a little bit of Mallard Creek's stream against Hopewell because, last week I couldn't go to a game because of my ankle injury. And Mallard Creek, they're explosive, man. They got some guys that can really, make some stuff happen. David Lampkin, being one of the main ones that has stepped up and gone into that playmaker role on offense. Coach March is predicting a victory at 28-17 Mallard Creek. So, hey, I guess this is what we're going to do on Between the Lines. If you want to throw your predictions out there, go right ahead. Appreciate you guys watching. But, North Meck has got to get this victory. This is one of those games that if you've got playoff aspirations and if you're North Meck, you got to think that Mallard Creek is one of those teams that, you're looking at the schedule and you're saying, hey, we got to get a win against these guys. These are good. This could be a team that we're going up against for possible, wild card seeding or maybe the number 2 team out of the conference. It's one of those, kind of games that, you got to have it if you're North Meck. Mallard Creek, you're 2-0 in the conference. You start thinking bigger now. You're thinking, okay, we get to 3-0 in the conference. We got some momentum rolling. Now let's get greedy. Let's go see what we can really do here, and let's see. We got this thing clicking, and you never know what can happen. So, both teams with a lot on the line right here. This is one of those what I would call seesaw games. It can turn your season one way or the other. If you're either one of these teams. North Meck could get back above 500. Mallard Creek could go to 3-0 in the conference. That's a big deal. That's a big deal for both of these teams when you start getting to mid-season and which way you want your, season to go. So I expect, some really, really good football over at Mallard Creek this Friday night for a big game between these two teams. All right, let's take a look at the next game we're going to look at tonight. Let's see here. Let's go to Hough and West Meck. So Hough obviously coming off the big win over Chambers at 5-0. West Meck, after their 3-0 start, have lost 3 in a row, and they're sitting at 3-3. And the most critical of those losses was to West Charlotte last week, which gives West Charlotte, obviously a huge edge toward that number 1 seed out of the split conference because they're both 3A teams. All right, so this game is at West Meck. West Meck sneakily one of the best places to watch a football game with the sunset and the airplanes. It's a it's a great backdrop. Max Preps rankings, they rank Hough the number 1 team in the state and its class, rightfully so. West Meck is ranked 31st in their class. So Max Preps predicts a Hough victory here of, we'll call that 40-21. So looking back at, what both of these teams have gone through recently, It's a rough and tough game between Hough and Chambers. Very physical, very defensive oriented. They got enough offense. The touchdown from J.T. Smith and the kicking of kicker Nolan Hauser, who's done a great job as usual. They were able to pull that victory out down at Memorial Stadium. So Huskies been in the spotlight. You look at West Meck, they're a young team. They got blitzed last week by, a very hungry West Charlotte team that, really lived up to their capability on offense, putting up 62 points. My first thought is, Hough sees that tape, Tad Hudson's going to be licking his chops. Josh Mahatha, the West Charlotte quarterback, had 7 touchdown passes. So, Tad Hudson and his friends are probably, wanting to get some of that too. For West Meck, you look at, Chambers held them down. As a coach, you want to look at the film and say, hey, if they can do that, we can do that too. But you got to, look at, what Chambers did to slow them down, but then also play to your strengths, Put your guys in the best position to do what they do best. Not necessarily scheme-wise what someone else had success with. That's a tough balance sometimes because you look at a scheme that might have worked and you have to look at guys and say, does that work best for us? And that's a tough battle as a coach sometimes. So, nonetheless, you have to figure Hough a big favorite based on, what they did last week to Chambers, and we saw what Chambers did to West Meck a couple weeks ago with a 64-6 victory. So, that's what we got right there. Okay. All right, let's take a look at our next game here. We're going to go to West Charlotte and Hopewell. We just talked about West Charlotte beating West Meck with a 3-1 record. I get my banners updated. I'm not doing my job. All right, so the Lions come into this game at 3-1, and the Titans of Hopewell come into this game at 1-4. All right, Max Preps has this at... they got West Charlotte ranked pretty high in 3A. They got them ranked 7th in the 3A class. And they have Hopewell ranked 49th in their class. We mentioned West Charlotte's victory over West Meck last week. Hopewell had the tough loss to Mallard Creek, who we just looked at a couple minutes ago. Max Preps is predicting a West Charlotte victory of 28-13, so 2 touchdown spread. According to the analytics at Max Preps. Obviously, first thing for West Charlotte, when you come in throwing 7 touchdown passes, for Hopewell, you got to come in with a plan to, slow the pass down, and getting pressure on the quarterback is one of those best ways to do that. It's going to be hard to sit there and play coverage with the guys that West Charlotte has, on the receiving end of things, not only Chance Morrow, but Q May and Samir Murphy and, some other guys, and even Antarius Carpenter coming out the backfield. Conversely, for West Charlotte, they played Mallard Creek a couple of weeks ago. I think Mallard Creek won that game 29-14, something along those lines. So 2 touchdown win for Mallard Creek over West Charlotte. We saw what Mallard Creek did to Hopewell. So you start looking at comparative analysis. You figure West Charlotte, Hopewell, could possibly be close for a little while. Like the analytics say, you probably lean towards West Charlotte in this one. When we start talking about conference once again, West Charlotte won the big matchup they needed to against West Meck. But now, kind of like what I was saying earlier with Mallard Creek, now you want to get greedy. You're 3-1. Coming off a big win over a rival and a big win for playoffs. Now you want to go see how good you can be. Hopewell, you're hoping to, upset the apple cart a little bit, hoping that West Charlotte maybe sleep on you a little bit. And Hopewell has shown some ability. So, we hope this is going to be a good game on Friday night up at Titan Stadium. All right. Let's take a look at our next one we're going to look at. And this is going to be the Battle of Allegheny with a little bit of a different twist on it. So we got Barry at 1-4 coming over to Harding to take on the Rams, who are at 2-4. Before I get into it, once again, earlier today, Dr. Ward was, remembered at, his celebration of life ceremony, and of course, our prayers, go out to him and his family. Mr. Ward did a lot for Harding and several other schools, throughout CMS. There will be, a ceremony before the game. I will share that. So if you don't have anywhere to go Friday night, feel free to come on out. If you knew Mr. Ward, pay your tributes. I know the Harding family and, Mr. Ward's family would appreciate that for sure. All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Duff. Appreciate that. All right. So, this is the Battle of Allegheny. And typically this game has become very emotional. These schools do not like each other. I will tell you that for sure. It is a old school rivalry for such, newness to it. If you don't know, Harding and Barry are literally on the same street, maybe a block and a half away from each other. When Barry opened, the first year Barry was open, their kids actually played with Harding, and I was the coach on that staff. And the JV, it was funny. They wanted us to pretty much make the JV all Barry kids, so they would have a head start going into next season. And we were like, heck no, it's not happening. But ever since then, once those kids left, it almost like it was just naturally born, once that happened. But anyway, let's look at this year's version of the Battle of Allegheny on the football field. I think we got two pretty even teams here. Barry ranked 44th in their class, and Harding ranked 47th in their class. Barry coming off a tough loss to South Meck last week at home, and Harding played well for a half down at Nation Ford in South Carolina. It's in Fort Mill, but ultimately lost that game down there. Max Prep says we're going to have a low-scoring game, but it says Harding is predicted to win 17-12 over Barry. So that is interesting. So let's get into it a little bit. So, Barry's one win is over East Meck, and Harding's two wins are over Garinger and West Meck. So, I think, you have to look at that and say Harding has the better win between the two teams. If this game is a high-scoring game, it will favor Barry, in my opinion. If it is a lower-scoring game, it will favor Harding. Barry, has some good offensive ability with Jaleel Quick at the quarterback spot, Christian McDonald at receiver, Antoine Bell kind of playing a tight end H-back / receiver role. Harding has some, good players as well. Octavian Davis at the receiver spot, Diego Parks at quarterback. Defensively, I think they played well, combined with all three units, D-line, linebackers, and the secondary. For Barry, their defensive standout is linebacker Khalik Amber-Bay. So you have some guys that can, make some plays, some college-level players on both sides. In the spring, this game ended with, a bit of a, fracas, and we don't want that to happen. We want to keep everything, square and good to go for this game. I think, both coaches and both coaching staffs will do a good job in, this year's edition for several reasons. One, I think both of these teams still have some hopes at a wild card berth. You got to start stacking up some wins, though. With the new system this year, with your everything kind of going into a formula, even though your record may not be, as strong with maybe 4-7, 5-6 possibly. That could be enough to still get you into playoffs based on, where everyone else is sitting. So, if you're, Coach Howard or Coach Smith with Barry and Harding respectively, you're telling your team that, hey, if we got to get into the playoffs, we got to win this game to give us a shot, because it's not dead yet. You're only at mid-season, but you got to start getting it going right now. So once again, we talk about seesaw games. I think this is a big seesaw game, for both of these teams. Maybe more so Barry than Harding because they're only sitting with one win, but if Harding's able to get to 3-4, then you start thinking about it. Can we find a way to get to 500? If you get to 500, then all bets are off. So, this is the game that I will be at along with the producer. So if you see us Friday night over at Harding, please say hello. Hopefully we'll have a good game, and we'll do it in honor of Dr. Ward once again. Okay. Next game we're gonna take a look at here. Let's go Butler and East Meck. So Butler coming into this game at 3-2, and East Meck coming in at 1-5. So both of these teams coming off of big victories. Butler had the big win, shutout win over Providence 20-0 last week. And then East Meck got into the win column. The first ever win for Coach Sanders as an East Meck head coach over Garinger, 31-14. All right, so Max Preps is saying Butler is ranked 13th in their class. East Meck ranked 53rd. All right, so the analytics give Butler a pretty big win here of 31-6. When you start looking at it, Butler is 3-2 with 2 losses to Richmond and the team out of Maryland. I believe it's St. John's. 2 very good teams, so there's no shame in that. You get to these kind of games, and Butler is the big favorite here. Number one, you want to work on some stuff that maybe didn't click, in the Providence game. Butler got out to a big lead, but they didn't build on it. So, there may be some things that Coach Hales wants to look at offensively to try to do a little bit better job moving forward, getting into those bigger games. East Meck, small victories to big victories. So, you want to get Butler off the field in a 3-and-out. You want to get, 3 first downs on this drive. You want to get in, obviously, into the end zone at some point. You get these kind of games, you want to just take the game and break it up and then celebrate those small things, that you can get done, but Coach Sanders is building a good program at East Meck, and I know he'll get there. So, everybody stay safe at East Meck this Friday night. All right, let's take a look at Garinger and Independence. They still have not fixed Garinger's record. I do not believe this. This stuff really counts, man. This stuff really counts when you're starting to calculate playoffs. And they use, Max Prep's records, to figure out best record and everything. I don't understand it. But anyway, Garinger is going on the road to Independence. Like we just mentioned, Garinger coming off the, loss to East Meck. But they did some good things. They threw 2 touchdown passes. I think the young man's last name is Bell, the quarterback, number 7. He also plays linebacker. They got an interception. Coach Billups leading the defense over there and did a good job. Got a couple of good stops to keep them in the game. I mean, it was a 19-14 game in the fourth quarter, but they just weren't able to get over that hump with East Meck. And then Independence is coming off a tough loss at Charlotte Catholic, 17-6. They were able to hang in there, but just couldn't get enough going on offense to get the victory. So let's see. Garinger is ranked 54th in their class, and Independence is ranked 36th in their class. Max Preps is predicting a low-score game here of 17-7, Independence over Garinger. Um, you start looking at it. Um, Independence, coming into this, I think they're starting to play better. Um, they kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start, but with each game you've seen progress, especially on the defensive side of the football with Coach Hackett. That's come along pretty well. But you can say the same for Garinger. They showed good progress last week, and this is gonna be one of those games where if you're Garinger, kind of like what I was saying with East Meck, you want to pick up those small victories. You got an interception last week. You want to try to get another one this week and replicate the things that you did well last week to build those good habits. If you're Independence, you want to try to, when you're 1-3, you want to try to. The goal is to get to 500. You get that thing to 500, like we kind of been saying tonight. Then you feel like you can make a push and you make a run, for a playoff spot. And I'm sure that's the goal over there with this new playoff system. I think Coach DJ, really wants to see that offense perform well and execute this Friday night. So that's going to be, obviously one of the big keys here. But we hope everyone stays safe. This game is at Independence, so enjoy the environment. And I don't know, have they brought the cannon back? Anyone watching, y'all know if they brought the cannon back over there? If they did, that thing used to annoy the heck out of me. It used to scare me. That thing was loud. But everybody have a good, safe Friday night. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at a little private school action. We got Charlotte Country Day going up against Providence Day. All right. So both of these schools, you would say, are kind of off to, disappointing starts. I'm sure they would say that. Country Day sitting at 0-4 and Providence Day sitting at 1-3. I don't remember if Country Day played last week, but Providence Day played. They lost to Christ School in a close game, 25-21. By all reports that I saw, their quarterback, Mr. Logan, got hurt, and then Mr. Ship had to go in and play quarterback, and apparently he hadn't really practiced it much, but he threw a couple touchdown passes to his normal receiver running mate, Channing Goodwin. So it's a talented young man right there. You can just come in cold like that, not really practice and throw 2 touchdowns. That's awesome. So we're hoping that Mr. Logan's back in the saddle at quarterback, but we'll see. We obviously don't get injury reports in high school. So let's see. Max Preps has these guys pretty closely ranked. They got Country Day 9th in their class, and they got Providence Day 8th in their class. It is predicting a pretty sizable Providence Day win, though, of 26-6. So 3 touchdown victory for Providence Day is what it's predicting. The big thing here is, Providence Day came into this season with some big time aspirations. And, at 1-3, this is when you really, got to start getting it going. So for you guys that aren't aware, the private school playoffs are a little bit different than public school. Private school, they have Division I and Division II playoffs. I don't know if they're doing Division III this year or not. So you've got to, pretty much finish in a good standing to get a shot into the D1 playoffs. That's the one, obviously everyone wants to be in. Those are the best teams. But if you don't get in there, the D2 playoffs are basically, their version of the wild card, but they play in a separate bracket. So at this point, you look at these records, you're wanting to get any kind of postseason football. And you can still get to the D1 playoffs if you really get hot, but you just got to start stacking wins, and you want to get to postseason football here. So both of these teams are traditional rivals of the Big Four, private schools here in Charlotte. So I expect it'll be a good crowd over at Providence Day, and I hope for a nice Friday night from both teams. All right, let's take a look at our next game here. Let's do Charlotte Catholic at 4-1, going on the road to take on Rocky River at 2-3. Not a matchup that I don't know if we've ever seen these two teams play. I mean, I know there's some good Charlotte Catholic historians out there that could tell me that, or for sure or not, but I don't think these two have matched up before. Be interesting to know that. All right, so interesting matchup from that perspective. So Charlotte Catholic coming off the win over Independence last week, going on the road to take on Rocky River. And did Rocky River play last? Let's check, because my memory is starting to lose it a little bit. All right, they didn't play. I feel a little better. So the last time we saw Rocky River was when they defeated East Meck, 48-0. All right, so Charlotte Catholic is ranked 14th in their class, while Rocky River is ranked 43rd in their class. Max Preps, interestingly enough, predicts a very close game, and they're predicting a Rocky River victory of 20-19. That would be very interesting right there. Max Preps looks at the numbers, and Rocky River, I think they're one of those teams that if they come ready to play, they have some guys that can play. The key is going to be their execution. If they're hitting on their offensive execution especially, they can, pose some problems. But the thing with Catholic, once again, even though they're not blowing people out of the water, they're just playing, good winning football. Hard-nosed, run the football, play tough, good defense, don't give up big plays. That's how they're winning. And, that's what I see right here. If you're Rocky River, you gotta have to have the discipline and the patience offensively, to not turn the football over. You gotta take what Catholic gives you, and they force you into being methodical most of the time. You just gotta be smart, with that. Conversely, for Charlotte Catholic, they're gonna do what they do. It's gonna be hard to get them out of what they do best. So you've got to try your best to get into early down stops and getting them into 3rd and long. The quarterback Boyle is very good though at throwing the football, and obviously the tight end Larson, big time recruit, and for good reason. His numbers are not huge because of the offense he plays in, but he's a big play guy. He's a big play guy at tight end. They run those good old waggle pass play actions. Some of the traditional, wing play action stuff they've run for years. And he's awesome. He's a dynamite player. You got to hit him every time. And you can't let him just release. But he's really good at getting off the line on those releases and getting into his routes. So, once again, if Rocky River is able to pull, what would be perceived an upset here and get to 3-3, then once again we start talking about making that push, maybe for a wild card spot here, in the conference. So, big game. The one advantage I think Rocky River does have, they've had 2 weeks to get ready. That is a plus because you need that time to go into what Catholic does on offense, because it's a lot different than what most teams are doing these days. Okay, let's go on to the next matchup here. There we go. All right. Let's see. Let's go down to a little South Carolina action here. Big game in the upstate. We got South Pointe taking on Catawba Ridge. Let me get my little banner thingy up there. There we go. All right, South Pointe coming off their first loss of the season, which is Spring Valley. They sit at 3-1, and then Catawba Ridge sits at 3-2. I believe the last time we saw them was at South Meck when they lost. Let me double check that to be sure. All right, yes, they lost 17-3 at South Meck, and we were there. So before I get to my observations on that, let's take a look at what Max Preps has to say. South Pointe is ranked number 2 in their class by Max Preps, and Catawba Ridge is ranked number 8 in their class. So 2 very good teams is what we're looking at here. And we've got a good game. They are predicting a South Pointe victory of 33-21, or 22. But about a 2-touchdown margin of victory for South Pointe is what they're predicting over Catawba Ridge. Now, you start looking at this game. South Pointe lost because they gave up 9 sacks, is what I remember seeing against Spring Valley. Catawba Ridge, they do have an ability to rush the passer. D lineman Asa Johnson, is very talented up front and can make some things happen. But when we saw them against South Meck, the biggest thing that I can remember was just finding a way to get loose for some, big plays. They were able to run the ball decently. But, it's kind of crazy to say this, but, they had trouble getting the passing game going with Jaden Davis, who is the number 1 quarterback or number 1 even player overall in the 2024 class. So you start looking at that. They've got, Jacoby Henderson, who's one of the best dynamic playmakers, I think in the state of South Carolina. But what South Meck did was they basically, put their resources toward him and said, everyone else, hey, you beat us. And, they weren't able to do that. So, I think for Catawba Ridge, offensively, they got to have some other guys step up and make some plays when the opportunity is there. For South Pointe, obviously, you give up that many sacks, you're looking at pass protection, and you're looking at getting the ball out maybe quicker. There's a lot of playmakers for South Pointe on the offensive side of football. We saw them up close at one of our camps. Quarterback Xavier McCrory is very talented in his own right. He's got a couple of offers, and he should have more. Just being frank about it. This is a huge game. Both of these teams are in the 4A class in the state of South Carolina. So this could be a possible playoff matchup if the brackets fell right on top of that. I'm expecting a really, really great game here and a great, great facility at Catawba Ridge with great, great people. My goodness. Love going down there. We went down there. How many times did we go down there? I feel like I want to say we've been down there twice, but maybe it wasn't. But there's just wonderful people, at Catawba Ridge. And Justin Adams, may go there from us this Friday night. I know it's on his short list. He's still trying to decide where he's going. So if you guys see him, say hello. But what a, nice place to watch a game at Catawba Ridge. And this is going to be a heck of a football game. I'm excited to see it. Okay, let's take a look at our next game here. My computer is, there we go. All right. We talk about Ridge. We got the Battle of the Ridges. Porter Ridge at 3-0, taking on Marvin Ridge at 3-1. I don't know what was going on in Union County when they started naming these new schools. I mean, what was Ridge one of the hot names or something? How many ridges we got? I mean, let me think. Let's think about it. What is a ridge? I mean, really, what's a ridge and why? I don't know. I got to look into that. Someone tell me what's the big deal with naming schools Ridge? Because we got a Catawba Ridge, Porter Ridge, Marvin Ridge. I think there's a Ridge Road Elementary somewhere. Good night. That's a Football Focus Weekly question. We got to get serious on Between the Lines. All right. So Porter Ridge coming in this 3-0, coming off their win against Ardrey Kell. Marvin Ridge at 3-1. Marvin Ridge's last game, was against Alexander Central. So they hadn't played in 2 weeks, but that was a big win, 42-8. So two very good teams here. Let's see what Max Preps has to say. So Porter Ridge is ranked 7th in their class. Marvin Ridge is ranked 10th. And is predicting, oh my gosh, look at this, guys. Look at this prediction here. It's pretty much even. Good night. Porter Ridge 32. Marvin Ridge 31. Wow. Man, if we get that Friday night, good night. What a game. So, Max Preps thinks these are two evenly matched teams here. You know, what I think, oh, man. So, once again, let's look at Marvin Ridge's schedule. Their only loss was to Ardrey Kell. Ardrey Kell just lost to Porter Ridge. Transitive properties of schedule comparison would say Porter Ridge is the favorite. But we don't play that way. The game's played on the field. Obviously, these two schools know each other pretty well. Because they're in the same county. Now, Porter Ridge has been playing up in 4A for a little bit longer. Marvin Ridge has been playing down in 3A. So they haven't necessarily played every year, I believe. But obviously, these kids know each other pretty well. Anytime you talk about Porter Ridge, you talk about stopping the option. But they have shown they can do more than that. I looked at the highlights that our queen got from the Porter Ridge Ardrey Kell game, and they showed, a lot of different stuff. They were throwing the ball down the seam. They're throwing screen passes with big linemen like Will Hart getting out there in front of guys and running. Omarion Taylor, number 3, is running downhill on that dive on the option offense and ran somebody flat over. Porter Ridge is an impressive looking team. I mean, just being real about it. Now, Marvin Ridge, they were ranked early on in our Dirty Dozen. And, they did pretty well against Independence early on. That was impressive. When they lost that game to Ardrey Kell, I think it knocked some steam off of them, just from, the fans of the polls and everything like that. But coming back and knocking off Marvin Ridge, knocking off Alexander Central. Alexander Central is not an easy place to play. And they run, an offense that can be, have some elements similar to Porter Ridge, which is probably why they played them. Just pretty smart. So, that offense will not be foreign to Marvin Ridge. So that's a big key right there. Now, Porter Ridge can, obviously do some other things, but if you stop the bread and butter and force them to beat you with the other things, then you got something working there. For Porter Ridge, they got to be smart up front. I think Marvin Ridge poses a good offensive line. They got the young quarterback in Metters that can do some good things. It's going to be a really, really fun game to watch. It's going to be a fun game to watch, and I'm sure that the environment will be really, really strong down there. Now, Damien, I don't have anyone coming right now, but I do know, and I don't normally do this, but I do know that there's another group coming down there that's made it their game of the week. So you're going to have coverage. It may not be from us, but there will be some coverage down there outside of the news stations, which is good. Because, the news stations don't necessarily get to stay the whole game and, give it the proper attention that it deserves from our high school football fan perspective. So, fun one down in Union County. If you like high school football, it's going to be a great atmosphere. All right, let's take a look at our next game here. We're going to jump to, let's see. No, we can't be done already. Oh, there we go. Providence and Mooresville. So, Providence at, 1-4, and Mooresville at 2-3. So let me get my little banner up. There we go. All right, so Providence is coming off the shutout loss to Butler, 20-0, and Mooresville's coming off the tough loss at Hickory Ridge, 45-19. These two teams are stepping outside of conference play in mid-season, which you don't see that often this deep into the season. So I commend both teams for making that happen. All right, so Providence is ranked 30th in the state in their class, and Mooresville is ranked 23rd. The analytics say by Max Preps, it is predicting a Mooresville victory of 23-12. So, um, I'd say that's interesting. When you start really looking at it here, let's take a look at Providence's schedule. So Providence at 1-4, they defeated Chester week 1, and you see a theme here with their scores. They keep teams down in the 20s. I mean, they're not getting blown out here. They're keeping the scores down defensively, so they're a good defensive team. But I think what has been happening in some of these games is the offense, has just had a little bit of trouble getting going. And the defense gets out there and they stay out there and maybe they get a little worn down and they're just not able to finish, the way they want to finish. So, that's the first thing I would say to Mooresville people is don't let the 1-4 record, think that Providence is a pushover because I don't think they are. When you look at Mooresville and their 2-3 record, they've defeated West Rowan, which I think is a good win because West Rowan is leading that South Piedmont Conference right now. And they defeated Cox Mill, who is I would say a middle of the road team right now. So, in their losses against Hough, Davie, and Hickory Ridge, you see what happens. They give up a lot of points. So if Mooresville wants to win, they can't give up a ton of points, number one. And number two, they've got to establish the run game. And that's what both of these teams want to do. They want to establish the run game. Providence behind Jamar Price, the star young man, has done a great job throughout his career. And Mooresville with Mr. Howell, who is going to, go to a pretty big school with the looks that he's been getting already. With it being a non-conference game, you're not necessarily concerned about where this puts you in the conference, but this is one of those games you start looking and talking about wild card situations and statuses. Both of these teams are going to be close in the RPI rankings for sure. And this can be one of those games that can get you into the playoffs or keep you out. Providence, I think, a little more desperation at 1-4 to start stacking those wins. And then Mooresville's got the incentive right here. Like I said, you're always under 500 as a coach. You want to get to 500, and then you feel like you can get something going. So big game for Mooresville from that perspective to get it back to 500. Providence to start stacking wins and try to improve that RPI for a possible wild card berth into the playoffs. So big game up at Mooresville, Friday night for sure. All right, let's take a look at the next game. We're going to look at Forestview at 3-2, going on the road to take on Kings Mountain at 4-1. Big game out here in the western part of the coverage area. All right, so let's see what Max Preps has to say here. Forestview ranked 12th in their class, and they ranked Kings Mountain number 1 in their class. I think some people may be surprised to see that. Especially where we have our county rankings, we kind of rank Kings Mountain a little, well, I mean, they're still very good, but anyway. So, shapes up to be a pretty good game here, according to Max Preps. Let's see what they predict here. They are predicting a Kings Mountain victory of 30-21, so a little over 1 touchdown victory for Kings Mountain over Forestview is the prediction. You're looking at what Forestview has done so far this year. They're 2-0 in conference play. This is a conference game, so, Forestview playing for a share of first place right here, and they're hot. They've won 3 in a row over Freedom, North Gaston, and Ashbrook. So they're getting a hot Forestview team starting to play their best football of the year. Conversely, Kings Mountain, Their only loss was the Shelby week 1, so they're hot too, and they're getting better. Wins over Asheville, Burns. Now Huss and North Gaston are kind of down. So my first thought is, shock to the system. They're going to be playing a tougher game for the first time in a couple weeks. Forestview coming off a win over Ashbrook. Ashbrook, I think, is a pretty decent team. So they've played, in some stress and some tougher football. Kings Mountain has not seen that in a little while. Can Forestview get off to a fast start? Number one. Number two, Forestview is really good on defense. Obviously, with the shutout against Ashbrook, if Forestview is to win this game, I think it's going to have to be lower scoring. For Kings Mountain, they want to get that score up high. I don't think Forestview is equipped enough on offense to pull off a shootout. So, Kings Mountain wants to hit those big plays and try to get in the box and run that score up early. So, should be a good game out there at Kings Mountain. Another really nice place. Man, they put some money into that stadium out there. Good gracious. Y'all got to go check it out one day. Oh, Miss Neely? I got you. I just knocked it out. And your son's looking pretty good. On the offensive side of football, I saw he caught a touchdown. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good stuff. All right. Let's take a look at our next game here. We're going to do A.L. Brown at Cox Mill. And A.L. Brown and Cox Mill is the Queen's game this week. So let's get that up on the screen right here. So the Queen will be in Cabarrus County. Starting to get out a little bit. A.L. Brown at 3-2 and Cox Mill at 3-3. So two teams kind of in the middle of the pack there in the Greater Metro 4 Conference. Looking at it, Max Preps has them ranked right here. A.L. Brown is ranked 26th in their class, and Cox Mill is ranked 31st in their class. Max Preps is predicting close game, but they're like A.L. Brown 25, Cox Mill 18, so a one-touchdown victory for the Wonders is what Max Prep says here. Of course, A.L. Brown's coming off a tough loss at home to Lake Norman. 1-point loss, 14-13. My buddy with Greater Metro 4 sent me some information on that game and showed that Lake Norman had, I think, 300 rushing yards on the ground. Now, Cox Mill is not obviously, they don't run what Lake Norman runs with that, option offense. But, you see that kind of numbers. If you're Cox Mill, you're thinking, okay, how can we replicate that with what we do to try to take advantage like Lake Norman did and control the game? Now, the difference here, this game was really, really close last year from what I remember. I believe it was a 1-point victory for A.L. Brown. A lot of big plays. I think the receiver Kendall Harris for Cox Mill had a really good game last year. So Cox Mill, has some history, of course, with A.L. Brown. They can do some things on offense. A.L. Brown turn around and do the same thing to him. I think the young man Johnson, the sophomore receiver, has looked really good. Game of big plays is what I'm thinking here. It could be an offensive shootout. And whoever has the ball last wins. I think it'll be a fun game to watch up at Cox Mill. I think the Queen's going to get some great highlights. So if you guys are fans of A.L. Brown and Cox Mill, stay tuned for that. We'll have highlights from that game later on in the weekend. But I think it's going to be a great game. Now, this is an important game from the perspective of Cox Mill because I believe they started out 3-0 and they've lost 3 in a row, which is accurate based on what we've seen right here. Hough, Mooresville, and West Cabarrus. And you see in those 3 games, they've had trouble getting the offense going. In their 3 victories, especially the first 2, they were able to really get the offense going. But the third one was a tough win at York. You look at that, and you want to reverse that trend. Now, you're at 500, but you're not at 500 the way you want to be at 500. So you want to reverse that trend. You want to get a winning conference play because you're sitting at 0-2. For A.L. Brown, same thing. You want to reverse the trend here. They've lost 2 in a row to Hickory Ridge and Lake Norman, possibly the 2 best teams in the conference right now. So you got to start looking at this thing and trying to get it going and hang in there and maybe sneak a number 2 seed if you get some help, or definitely a wild card. So, that's what these teams are looking at for Friday night. All right, let's take a look at our next game here. We got. We're getting close to the end, guys. Close to the end. Let's do this one. Let's go South Pointe Crest. This is a big game out in the Big South Conference. There we go. All right, so South Pointe sitting at 4-1. Crest at 3-1. Max Preps has them ranked South Pointe number 2 in their class and Crest number 9 in their class. And Max Preps is predicting a high-scoring game, but a Crest victory of 36-32. Wow, that'll be a fun game to watch. It'll be a lot of running. Both of these teams love to run the football. South Pointe out of more of their traditional red bone. Crest will be a little bit more multiple in their sets, but they do like to run the football. And you got 2 running backs that are really, really good. For South Pointe, Tyson Riley. Young man just runs hard. Number 31. Really enjoyed watching him earlier this season against Hickory Ridge. And then Mari Adams has come on for Crest and done an excellent job running the football. So obviously the key for both of these teams, who could stop the run the most? Because that's who's going to win the game, plain and simple. I think Crest has a little bit more ability to throw the football if they're stopped with the run. South Pointe, from what I saw up close, they really don't have much of an ability to throw it unless it's the one deep ball down the sideline. To the big, tall kid, I think he wears number 35. He caught one against Hickory Ridge for a touchdown off a halfback pass on that. But this game is a big, big conference game in the Big South Conference. South Pointe is 2-0 in conference play. And I believe Crest is also, they're 3-0 in conference play. So, this is a huge game, obviously. And then Crest having Shelby coming up next. It's a really, really even bigger game for them. Because, obviously with what Crest and Shelby means in Cleveland County, that's going to be a huge, huge emotional game. And then South Pointe with Kings Mountain coming up. So both of these teams have big games coming up next. And you don't want to go into a big game coming off a loss. So not only big from that standpoint, big in the conference. Should be a big crowd at Crest. This is Gaston County's best team going up against one of Cleveland County's best teams right here. So it should be a fun matchup out there in Shelby, the Crest part of Shelby. Whatever that's called. All right, do we have any more games? I know some of you are like, please let it end. If you're watching, I didn't hit a game that you would like to talk about. Just go ahead and post it while my computer finally decides to work or not. There we go. Yeah, I think that's all the games that we got on the docket. Let's see. Any comments on any other games y'all wanted me to talk about? Well, we're right at the 1 hour mark. So, once again, tune in tomorrow for Football Focus Weekly. We're not going to have any guests tomorrow night, but we will, do our normal stuff. We're going to get into some topics that we haven't had a chance to really hit on the past couple of weeks because we've had the guest on the show. Robbie Jones wants to talk about Mount Pleasant. Well, let's find where Mount Pleasant is in my Max Preps document here. South Stanley. Man, I did not do my South Stanley research. What a name. The Rowdy Rebel Bulls. I have never heard that. What a mascot that is. Wow. All right, so South Stanley at 1-3. Let's see. They're ranked 27th in the state. Mount Pleasant is ranked 15th in the state. Max Preps is predicting a score of 23-10 So 2 touchdown victory for Mount Pleasant over the South Stanley Rowdy Rebel Bulls. Good night. Okay, so looking at South Stanley's competition, they lost pretty big to West Stanley, Southwestern Randolph, and Carson. They did defeat South Davidson, so they're coming off a victory at least. But based off of that, I have to like Mount Pleasant pretty strong right here. Let's see, they got some stats here. Let's see if they're a run or pass team. South Stanley is, let's see, according to what they got in here, they're pretty balanced. 82 pass attempts versus 81 run attempts. Number 8, Mr. Eldridge is their guy running the football, passing the ball. 9 interceptions to 2 touchdowns for Mr. Tucker. So it's like he can get some pressure and he can, kind of turn the ball over a little bit. Eldridge is their guy receiving too, 220 yards receiving. So hey, stop number 8. Good game plan for Mount Pleasant here. So I really do like Mount Pleasant's chances. They kind of scuffled a little bit, for a couple games, but they got back in the win column against Union Academy. I like them here, obviously. We're a South Stanley team that's struggling a little bit, for sure. All right. With that being said, that was Between the Lines Live. I didn't promote it, but thanks for watching. I didn't know who was going to be on, if anybody, but appreciate the time. Stay tuned. Tomorrow night, Football Focus Weekly. Normal show, no guests, topics, predictions, all the good stuff you get used to. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you tomorrow night.